A chicken flew to my house and I decided to create an augmented reality surface detection tutorial in Unity, so you can add as many chickens as you want in your home. Open Window, Package Manager, and look for ARFoundation package, then install it. Search for ARKit and install it. Search for ARCore and install it. Look for the new input system and install it or update it. To set up the augmented reality scene, we have to delete the main camera and we create a new one by adding a new XR origin. Then we add the AR session, and now we have our scene set up. Now go to Edit, Project Settings and XR Plugin Management. On Android, we select Google AR Core, and on iOS, we select ARKit. Then we go to Graphics and we select the default render pipeline. Now look for the mobile renderer, then add render feature and we select AR background render feature. Now we need to build the project to see if we see what the camera sees. So go to Player, iOS, add your company name, we disable bundle ID overriding, and in other settings we look for requires ARKit support and check it. Now on Android we go to other settings and then remove Vulkan, which is not supported yet, and finally we set up the minimum API to Android 7.0 Nougat. Now it is time to build and run. So change the platform you have. In my case I will choose iOS, but you can choose Android if you have this device to run. We create the build folder and then iOS app build or Android app build if that's your case. On Xcode, make sure to select the theme from your Apple developer account and run again. This is what the app should look like. We get the camera notification access and then we see what the camera sees. Our system has only 4 components. The experience manager, the most important one, that will rely on input handler to get every time the user taps on top of the screen, and an AR raycast manager, that is a ray that we are gonna fire from our camera to the detected plane, and we can track our spaces in the real world. And finally the chicken, that is the object that we want to spawn with the spawn chicken method. Get the chicken assets Unity package from the link in the description and drag and drop it on the assets folder and import all the assets. We start by creating a new folder called scripts. We create another one named input. Then we create a new input actions and we name it user input. When opened, we add an action map called mobile touch. And on bindings, on tab, we type tab to select primary touch. On interactions, we add tab. Let's add another binding and in path, we look for the mouse left button. And on the interactions, choose tab to test in editor. Finally, let's rename the action to tab. Once we save, we need to generate a C# class from this input action map and apply. Inside input folder, we need to create a new monobehavior script called input handler. On input handler, delete the methods on it and create a wake method. Now let's create a private user input reference, the class generated by the action map. Then we create on tab static event that will be invoked every time the system detects a tab and that can be accessed by the other scripts in the project. Now on a wake method, we create a new user input instance and we enable it. Now on start method, we will subscribe to the action when it is performed by our action map. So user input that mobile touch that tab that perform will call the method on tab performed. Now let's create on tab performed method. We change this by context. And for this project, we only want to invoke our on-tab static action. Now let's unsubscribe from the action map event. So user input, that mobile touch, that tab, that perform. Oops, delete this parenthesis. And this is our input handler script. Let's reference it in the scene. Let's create a new game object and we will name it as input handler. Then just go to add component and type input handler. Now let's save the scene with Ctrl S. Let's have a look into the chicken prefab in prefabs folder. As you can see, the chicken prefab contains an egg and the chicken rigged 3D model, which also contains animations set up that we will see later. Let's go to scripts folder and create our chicken mono behavior script. We need to create a serialized field reference to the animator component. Now let's create the onEnable method, the function called once the prefab appears. Here we will initialize our chicken elements. If the animator for some reason is null, we will look for the component in the children and we assign it to our reference. Now it is time to create the method to place the chicken, place chicken, and as an input we want to get the reference to the tracked element to set it as the parent, and that can be sometimes null. So transform.setParent and set the parent. As I said, the chicken has animations and an animator set up already. There is a boolean parameter named isAwake that will let the other animations run. So animator setBool and in parentheses isAwake and true. Now let's add the script to the prefab root and assign the animator component from the chicken rigged game object. Let's begin by creating on scripts folder a new mono behavior called Experience Manager. Now we will drag the script to XROrigin, go to prefabs folder and drag canvas prefab to the scene. The canvas contains an UI button with a chicken logo that will appear to give us the option to get a new chicken to place. Right click and add on UI an event system to let the canvas elements to react to the user input. Now on Experience Manager script, we need to create a serialized field reference to the UI button we have on the canvas. Then create the boolean flag to see if we can add a new chicken. Now we create a public method that will be called from the button chicken named setCanAddChicken. And in parentheses as an input we have the boolean canAddChicken. So we essentially assign to our variable the one coming from the caller of the method. Also, we want to hide the button when we have a chicken to place already, and we want to make it visible to give the option to the user to add a new chicken when we are not placing chickens. The next step is to create a private reference to the chicken preview, the one that shows where it can be placed and move everywhere we aim to. This chicken preview is visible only when we are placing a chicken only, so when canAddChicken is true. Now in Unity we select the Add Chicken button and in onClick we drag our XROrigin, that is where the Experience Manager is. We select the function we want to call when pressed, so setCanAddChicken, and we set the boolean to true. On XROrigin, let's add the component ARPlaneManager and the ARRaycast Manager. We will reference the button later with the other elements of the Experience Manager. Now it is time to create a serialized field reference to the ARRaycast Manager and another one to the chicken prefab. Here we will create a vector3 to store the detected position by the raycast and a quaternion for the detected rotation. Now on start method we will listen to the onTap event from input handler that will call the function spawnChicken. Let's unsubscribe from onTap before we forget to do it. On spawnChicken we need to validate first if we can add the chicken, otherwise do nothing. Now let's create a var chicken that stores a new instance of the chicken prefab, so this is the actual spawned chicken. Then we will access the chicken script in chicken with getComponent chicken and we call its method placeChicken and we pass the current trackable. Let's create the AR trackable reference current trackable and initialize it as null. We will assign its value later. Back to spawnChicken. Let's assign the position with chicken transform position as the detected position and chicken transform rotation as the detected rotation. Finally, set canAddChicken as false, so the button appears again. Go to start method to define the initial state of the app. So set canAddChicken as true. So as soon as the app runs, the user has a visible chicken to place. Also, the chicken preview is a new instance of the chicken prefab, so let's assign it here at the beginning. Now let's create the update method that is called every frame Here we will use the raycast to detect trackables and their position and orientation. Here we will call the function getRaycastHeatTransform. Let's create it here as private void getRaycastHeatTransform. We need a var hits, that is a list of ARRaycast hits. We need a var middle screen to store the values of the center of the screen, the place we will fire the raycast from. And we create this if that validates if the raycast detects anything. If ARRaycast manager that raycast, and in parentheses we provide the middle screen, hits, and the trackable type plane within polygons, so to the convex shapes of the detected planes, boundaries, points. Now here we set the value of the detected position as the first hit, pose, position. Then detected rotation is hits 0, pose, rotation. Here we update the position of the chicken preview because it happens every frame. So chicken preview transform position is detected position. Chicken preview that transform that rotation equals detected rotation. And finally, current trackable is the one we hit first. In Unity on XR Origin Experience Manager, let's assign the Add Chicken button from the canvas. Now drag XR Origin to ARRaycast Manager slot, and finally the chicken prefab to the chicken prefab slot. Now I will switch from Android to iOS, that is the device that I want to run the app on, but stick to Android if that's your connected device. Once we switched, I click in Build and Run. I select the folder. On my case, I will replace the project. Remember on Xcode to select your team, otherwise you won't be able to deploy this on your phone. And this is the final result. I have a chicken preview that moves where a plane is detected. And I tap to leave the chicken on the table. If I want another chicken, I press the chicken button. And that's it. Thanks for watching. You can support me by getting the full project plus source code on the link in the description or sharing the video. Until the next time. Thank you.